Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard, but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new rendition of the weekly wrap-up. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit that bell as well. We're ready to go. Starting off a little bit earlier than usual tonight, and that's okay. I think that, we like to go on when nobody else is on, but we also like to get, I guess, as many people as we can before they fall asleep. So maybe this time slot will be, what we're going to be doing moving forward, maybe a little bit earlier. I know we pushed it back to 10:20 Eastern. Maybe we'll start going at 10 on the nose. So like the stream so you get that face cam. We're going to talk about several things in today's stream. The final, or at least the lion's share of the Epstein files were released. It's not good enough for some people. Some people are deranged. They're just lying about the contents of it because they grifted off of it. All these years, there is a conspiracy grift. It doesn't mean that we're using the term the way the left likes to use the term, because the left will call things that are blatantly obvious conspiracy theories. But you do have this cycle of grift surrounding conspiracy theories, because we have a very strong energy on the right that is good, and it can be used as a force for good, and it's being manipulated and perverted into a force for bad to demoralize people. They will lie about the successes of the administration. They'll downplay it. They'll lie about Trump, and they'll lie about the files, and people eat up this slop, and we gotta put a stop to that. We're going to be talking about the Texas special election that did not go the Republicans' way. Is this something that we need to pay attention to? Long story short, the answer is it probably won't have much of an impact, but it is true that Republicans, they shouldn't feel good about dropping the ball in elections like that. So we're at 100 likes. The face cam will go on, and we will start off by talking about the number one topic of the evening, which is the Epstein files were released, the lion's share of them. There were millions of files that got released. And this whole thing, Trump got a lot of hate and a lot of pushback when he initially said, it's a hoax, it's a Democrat hoax like Russia. Well, he was right. And I thought at the time it was not the best messaging, and it may not have been the best messaging for the time. However, what is true is that is an undeniable statement at this stage of the game. That doesn't mean that he didn't do shady shenanigans with his island or anything like that. It just means that the notion that Trump is involved and that there's this big, massive cover-up scheme going on, it's not quite there. In fact, there's several emails that showed that Donald Trump did not go to the island. There's plenty of evidence that shows he was not involved. They will point towards like snippets of them talking about how there's allegations, and they'll say Trump did all these horrible things, but then it also says the government, which I think was at the time like an Obama judge or something for some of the cases, were tossing it out because it was just a frivolous, ridiculous lawsuit. You had people calling in claims that were, from even some like these far right trolls that made it into the files, but they said not a credible source. But it didn't stop people from taking it at face value. Of course, it didn't stop all the usual suspects from piling on. And this is what the left does. They will flood the zone with bullshit. They're shameless. They know that they're shameless. They don't care that it's bullshit. And they expect people to buy it, and it becomes part of the discourse until it runs its course. And this just buys them time. It's like they're being effectively like a laser pointer with the cat. So I think it's just important and imperative to look at the situation and just call it out like it is. Call out the logic behind it, what they're doing, instead of actually getting in the mud with them at this stage in the game, because it's just going to waste people's time. They're not going to change their minds. These are obviously like false things, but to see it kind of infect the right. And we have this tweet from a former, I believe now, former Congress, quote unquote, woman, not Congress, maybe not a woman, who knows, Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying, "You can't vote your way out of this. The Epstein files are proving it's one repulsive club, no matter which party's in charge." So here's the deal. She's bitter. She was knocked out of Congress because she was losing her mind. Trump knew it. The whole world knew it. And she decides to get back at Trump after she's basically accused him of being involved and saying, no, don't even bother showing up. Don't vote. They want people to sit out the midterms. And they come up with these lies, these hoaxes. They say Trump isn't deporting anybody. They ignore, they deny the raw data. There's so much evidence that Trump is either directly deporting. You have a total of like six, and this is before the ICE funding, by the way. You have a total of like 600,000 plus either deportations, and this doesn't count the self-deportations, or people that are in custody waiting to be deported. That's what you have. You have 600,000, and then on top of it, you just have, you could, in terms of the study, you could believe it, you could not believe it. You have at least 1 million people that have self-deported. Net migration is currently in the negatives for the first time since the 1950s, I believe, which is absurd to think about, but it's true, and it's a very good thing, by the way, and it's something that we should look at and make sure we can continue. And even the legal immigration number, including like naturalizations and everything, for 2026 is projected to be like the lowest it's been since the Immigration Act of 1990, and it's probably going to fall even further. So we'll get to immigration in a minute, but I do want to focus more on this because they always try to say, oh, both parties are the same. We understand that's not true. We understand the Republicans are delivering victories. You may not like the fact that the economy is not fully out of a hole right now, but they are clearly, in terms of what they've done with the first Big Beautiful Bill, what they're about to do with the second Big Beautiful Bill that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it will likely be a thing this year, is that the economic agenda is already passed through. These things take time. We're just entering tax season. People are going to see the relief. People are already seeing the relief if they're already doing their taxes, to the point where the economy is at least improving, and you actually had the Congress take action to fund ICE to record levels. But these are the same people that will complain about ICE when a dumb liberal decides to run up and attack them while they're doing their job and get shot in the process, FAFOing, because, I don't know, the government or something. These are not serious people. The class of podcasts, bro, they always decide to go the way the wind blows, agitation. They knew that Trump in 2024, most of them at least, knew that Trump in 2024 was going to win. They knew that, oh, we can get him on the show, we could talk to him, whatever. And now these are the same people that are repeating the same talking points and poisoning their audience with bullshit, which is why we're here. We got to counter the narrative because it's just not true. They lie about immigration. They lie about the Epstein files. It's funny because Trump didn't even really promise to release the Epstein files during his campaign trail. They always say that was like a big part of his campaign because he was asked a question one time and he said he guessed he would. And guess what? He did it. It doesn't matter. He did it. I mean, it's not like I said, there's not going to be a list of names and everything that people did like sexually with minors on an island. That's not going to exist. If it ever did exist, it was scrubbed. It was gone. And if Trump had any involvement with any wrongdoing with minors, even if it was somebody who's 17 years old and 364 days of age, it would have been out over the past 5 years. It would have been released during the Biden administration. But guess what? It doesn't exist because it didn't happen. And now people can, like, it's like they finally got there. They finally got the Pandora's box. They open it. Nope, nothing's there. Same thing with Russia. This is Russia all over again. And they've released how much? How much have they released? 3 million pages, 180,000 photos, 2,000 videos. Trump did it. He followed through. Another promise, quasi-promise that he kept, right? He released the Epstein files. But it doesn't matter because the NPCs will just cope and they'll lie because that's all they have. These people are clowns. They're not serious people. They're not built for serious politics. They're not. They should go do something else because whatever they're doing is not helping. It's hurting. These are the same people that are telling people not to vote in the midterms. What does that make you? That makes you not a part of the right. That makes you a part of the opposition. You are opposing the right. You are effectively, I don't care how based you claim to be, how edgy you can be. You're helping the left. You're a part of the left. You're useless. You're irrelevant. And these are the same people that don't want to vote in a primary either, because if you have, because there are plenty of legitimate grievances to address with the Republican establishment, even as the Republican establishment has improved over time thanks to Trump and his movement. But basically what they would be doing is handing the key. They're handing the key to the establishment back. That's what the midterms are about. It's not about did Congressman X, Y, and Z vote the right way on this hypothetical bill. That's not what the midterms are even about. It's a proxy war. I don't care how rhino the rhino is, with the exception of Massey, who will be discarded of in a primary, and a few others who deserve primary challenges. But in terms of the general election, that's what counts. That's what matters. And if people want to sit that out, they're handing a victory to the establishment. They're taking the mantle of the party. Instead of saying, give Trump the mandate, they're going to say this is proof that the party is moving away. The party needs a change. They need to do it their way. And they'll lose by even more because they pander to a coalition that's dead, literally, does not exist anymore, will never exist again. That's how these people operate. They want to lose. So when I see things like this on social media, this was posted as a DM received by Mark from Rasmussen, posted this DM of this guy saying that he's a 3-time Trump voter. I don't know if this guy is a troll or what's being said here, but he's complaining that there's not enough that's done regarding H-1B visas. But the problem is this administration is the only reason why anybody knows what the hell an H-1B visa is to begin with. Let's be honest here. For one. For two, he's taken severe steps to cut it. He's basically gutted the entire program by putting a ridiculous fee that none of these people can pay to get in the country. He restricted their ability to use FHA loans, which has single-handedly caused the housing market in Dallas-Fort Worth to start becoming a buyer's market again, among probably many other metro areas. I mean, are we seriously going to do this? Like, what do you want? What the hell do you want, you selfish piece of garbage? What do you want from this administration? It's okay to demand more, but it's not okay to say, I'm going to hand the people that want to kill me and the entire ship and want to sink the entire ship. They want those people to be in power over the entire Congress for the rest of Trump's term. And on top of that, they want the establishment Republicans to be in control. That's what they want because that's what's going to happen. This will be used to delegitimize the Vance candidacy. If you see a massive drop-off in support, you think that they're going to listen to you? You think they're going to change up because they see losses? You think they're going to say, okay, now we need to go farther to the right on immigration? No, they'll say Trump was too hard with his ICE raids, and we need to go back to compassionate conservatism, because that's how these people operate. You're not teaching them a lesson. You're just being used. You're a useful idiot. You're a fool. You're a clown. Like, these people are not serious that post or that write things like this. Like, there are problems with H-1Bs. There are problems with immigration. Guess who's trying to rectify that right now? This administration that you're complaining about and trying to undermine and hand a victory to the other side. It's pathetic behavior. This is what they're doing. It's perverting the movement. It's disgusting, and it needs to be called out, because people have the correct tendencies on things like this. They do. They understand there's a problem. But when you actually have people that are trying to, pull out every play in the playbook to try to mitigate it that they possibly can in a reasonable, feasible way, these are the people that always step up and say, nope, not good enough for me. Really? Like, they don't understand what time it is. They're no different than the left. In some cases, they're worse than the left, because the left will just look at you and say, yeah, you know what? Your kids should be shot, you fascist. I mean, they elected a guy who said that to the Attorney General slot in Virginia, and they're nominating another guy who said virtually the same thing for the Attorney General slot in Ohio. So for the people out there that say that's not how the left operates, yeah, they do. All right, we're past this point. The entire the state of Virginia voted for that guy over the sensible Republican incumbent by 7 points. You think staying home was teaching the Republicans a lesson there? You jackass? Of course not. Like, that's how, they don't understand what time it is either. They're worse than the neocons. They're worse than the establishment. There's no better tool for the establishment than an anti-establishment retard who is trying to disaffect people, who is disaffected themselves to the point where they're not able to take action. They're a cuckold. They're a eunuch, basically. You're a sitting duck. You want other people to be sitting ducks. It should make you angry that these people exist. They need to be mocked, humiliated, ridiculed every single step of the way. Because this is what they want to take away. They want to hand the baton of the party back by proxy, because that's what will happen, for the record, if there's a massive blowout loss in the midterms, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way, because I think these people are more terminally online than you would really think. But you have the highest level of interior deportations in decades. They still repeat the lie about the Obama thing. But if you include the detainees, it doesn't even matter if you include the Obama criteria. That's number one. Number two is you have millions of self-deportations. You have negative net migration. If you would have told me that that's the only thing Trump would accomplish as president is negative net migration, I would push that lever for him every single chance that I would get. All right, like I would vote for school board elections to enhance his mandate. If that was the only thing that he would do during his presidency, that's how crucial. Nobody thought that was possible. Not a single person thought it was possible that could be achieved, but it was achieved. Demographic change was happening since the 1960s with Hart-Celler, and it got way worse after the Immigration Act in 1990. But that has been reversed. Not just slowed, reversed. For the first time in decades. And, you could say anything about, it's like, what do you want to see from an administration in 1 year? The fact that even happened for a year is nothing short of miraculous. The fact that it's going to likely continue and get better thanks to, ironically enough, Marco Rubio, formerly of the Gang of Eight at the State Department, just gutting the immigration program entirely, almost. It's phenomenal. It's a great thing. Effectively cutting legal immigration down to a fraction. You have an effective moratorium. 70-some countries are not issuing any visas. You could say, well, why isn't India on there? It should be, to be fair, and that's a legitimate point of criticism. However, given what's happened with the H-1B program, it does seem as if that immigration is also significantly slowing. And Trump already in his first day in office repatriated 20-some thousand Indian nationals to India. But you didn't hear about that because it didn't fit the narrative. It didn't fit the criteria. The refugee program is gone. You had a few thousand Boers that occupy the slots. And the H-1B program has been significantly regulated and gutted to the point where the fraud levels and things like that are going to be gone and the sheer number is plummeted. So if you look at that and say, no, that's not good enough for me, then what is good enough for you? Because a lot of these things were things we didn't even think was possible. And this administration has done them. And the second a Dem is in charge, do you think you think we're going to build on the progress? The goal is to build on the progress. You're right. It's not to sit there and say this is good enough. The goal is to build on the progress. The problem is the other side will not allow that to happen. If you are in any way are telling people not to vote for Republicans, no matter how milquetoast they may be, given what's at stake, yes, you are the problem. Yes, it is a million times more effective to just shut up and vote Republican than to whine, because they don't listen to whiners. They listen to winners. And I'm a winner, and there's a lot of whiners out there, and it feels good to be a winner, and I want everyone to be a winner. But there's a lot of whiners. And these people, they lie about Epstein, they lie about immigration, they lie about everything else. They want to undermine the public's trust in the administration. There's no other rationale, and the people in the administration hate these people. So for the people that say, oh, any of these wins is because of whining, it's not. You're a fool. Like, seriously, log off the internet, do something, like hit the gym like a normal person, be a total normie. Like, seriously, you're not built for this. You're not. You're a retard. You're a clown. All these people that say all these crazy things, and especially and you have like the Israel obsessed crowd. That's another wing of it, which we don't need to cover them as in depth as these other two, because we've covered it ad nauseum, and we're sure we'll continue to cover it. But it's like Donald Trump is somebody that basically ends wars, doesn't start wars. We're saying he's going to start a war for Israel, this, that, and the other thing. He takes out Iran's nuclear facilities without starting a war, which is bad for the United States for them to have, because these are deranged lunatics who chant death to America. Yeah, Israel might be more of like an immediate target for them, but I don't want these people having nukes. Trump has never wanted Iran to have nukes, and he's always expressed willingness to use force to stop it. He goes into Venezuela. He does something. He does regime change in 2 seconds for the benefit of the United States, and not a single American gets killed. And he's brokering peace deals in the Middle East and is on the verge of getting one done in Eastern Europe. But if that's not good enough for you, I don't know what is. Like, these people are deranged. They don't look at the big picture. They don't analyze things the way they should be. These are deranged people that are out for their own personal brands. And they think that being mad at Trump all the time is going to spare them or something. Maybe there's something deep down where they think they'll be left alone by the left or something if they disparage Trump. To an extent, it's true, but the left will eventually eat them if they get their way, which would be to have the left win, because that's all they care about. They're very similar to the establishment Republicans that are in Indiana that we will dispose of in the primary, like normal people, not sit out an election and then not vote for good people when you have a chance to vote for good people. Because that's the difference between a winner and a whiner. A winner will seek a solution. Will any of the people that whine about Trump 24 hours a day, will they ever at least seek a solution? Will they ever give constructive criticism, or will they be an unhinged lunatic? Because I see so many people being the latter, and I don't see anybody being the former. And I put a poll out for the viewers as well. And by the way, guys, Super Chat to make sure we can hit our goal. We're going to be reading Super Chats eventually. But we put a poll out, 538 voters, grade Trump's job so far. Now, 50% said A. 33% said B. That's fair. There are things you can disagree with, or there are things you could say, I want more of this, I want more of that. But anybody giving it anything, okay, if you give it an A, you give it a B, fine. You still don't really like the state of the economy or something like that. That's a fair assessment. I'm not saying it's Trump's fault, because it's not, but it's a fair assessment to have because things are just so broken to begin with. So if it's an A or a B, that's valid. If it's a C, it depends where you lie. You know, if you happen to be somebody that is, you know, I guess you would say like an independent voter who has mixed feelings, like a true independent, fine. I think if you're like actually America first and you're giving him a C, I'd say maybe you're a little bit misguided, but maybe salvageable. If you're giving him an F, you're either on the left by proxy or you're on the left, period. Like that is really what it is. I tell people this. If you watch CNN, you will get a fairer, like actual display of what's going on than if you listen to alternative media at this stage in the game, because at least they will be mad, they will be angry, but they will show you Trump's victories through a seething lens. But the people that are in the alt media that just whine and come up with bullshit all the time, those people are not your friends. Those people are the enemies. They work for the enemy either directly or indirectly. So if you give it an A, give it a B, that's fine. I think there's wiggle room for critique and debate and discussion that's in good faith. If you give it a C, I think that there's a good chance either you're a true independent or you're a little misguided, which probably means that you're, regardless, a little misguided, in my opinion, but that's okay. If you give it an F, then you're on the left by proxy, or you're just on the left, period. Or your expectations are unrealistic and you need to learn the game of politics a little bit better. Otherwise, we're never going to win. So that's probably where I would clock him right now. This is probably an A minus, A, period. I mean, given expectations on certain things, he it's like the only thing holding him back is the economy. That's the only thing holding him back, which is ironic because if this was term one, like that'd be an entirely different ball game, because if you had the term one economy with all of the social stuff going on right now, his approval rating probably would be in the 50s. Easily. People would like the ICE raids. They would be tied to, and I think they do for the record anyways, but more people who say in polls they don't like what ICE is doing would be more willing to say they like it if things were going well for them. It's because things don't go so well for people economically, then they say, I disapprove of the immigration policy, even though I approved of it when he took power. Things like that. And by the way, if nothing was happening with ICE, then you wouldn't have an approval rating like that, would you? So they can't put two and two together. They're not, these are just, the grifter class needs to be stopped. They're not helping. They're just talking. They're only helping for their personal brand. And if that's who the people are, then those people serve no purpose in the movement. They don't belong in the movement. They do need to be gate-kept from the movement, because you know what? Gatekeeping is good. It's good if the right people are gatekeeping. If the right people are in charge of the gate, a little bit of gatekeeping is good. Because if you don't effectively do it, you're going to have the floodgates of retard just pour through, and that is not what we want whatsoever. So, speaking of flood of retards pouring through, we have to talk about an election that took place, a special election in the state of Texas, where Republicans fell short by 14 points in a Trump plus 17 district. Now, the turnout for this particular district was just 15%. So anybody acting like this is indicative of anything is not really accurate. And also, largely the voting window took place during effectively as a polar vortex in the state of Texas. Not quite the best way to drum up turnout whatsoever. So when I see things like this and there's a big shift like that, I say, okay. Now, I will say the on the flip side, you could make a case that Republicans should not have underperformed by this much in this particular district because like the college-educated voter, the voter that typically votes in these kinds of things is usually a little bit more Republican than the district at large. So it's a bit of an anomaly, but it's not unlike anything that we've seen before. But it does show Republicans, like, why do they always fall asleep at the wheel? Now, Democrats have been amped up because, you have all these, like, anti-ICE protests going on. These are Democrats who usually vote Democrat who voted in this election. That's it. Like, that's the explanation. And you're starting to see a bit of a reversion to, like, a 2020 style split in the electorate, which means that Texas might be a little bit closer than people would like in the midterms. Doesn't mean it's going to flip, but it just means that, usually, 2018 looked a lot like 2012 by many metrics. 2026 is starting to shape up to look like 2020, which in some ways could be a good thing. In some ways, maybe a less than good thing. It doesn't mean you're going to run up the total by 15 points in Texas. It means that it's possible, and I don't think that this is really that indicative of it being a low turnout special election. But yeah, I mean, I could see that Senate race being within 5 if it's Tallarico versus Paxton. Absolutely could see it being within 5. Doesn't mean that it isn't winnable. Doesn't mean Democrats have a real shot at it. But it's just the way these turnout dynamics typically work in a midterm year. So Republicans have a duty to engage voters. Instead, and this ties into what we were saying before, the grifter class is trying to undercut it. They're trying to look at Trump's presidency and diminish the wins and shout lies that are failures usually, or shout things that might be actual shortcomings and make them seem far, far worse than they actually are. So, regardless of however people want to spin the state of affairs, it's still not the best midterm year for Democrats that we're looking at. But a lot of Republicans, instead of actually making sure that they could exploit that, they're too busy demoralizing Republicans. What suicidal group of people would do this? Like, what group of people would do that? Obviously, the answer is people on the left that would come in as like a controlled opposition thing, which I'm not even entirely sure that's all what it is, but the left is loving it. They're loving these people. They're loving the demoralization on the right, because think about it. The Democrats in 2024 got like 3 times as many votes in this district, if not like 4 times as many votes than they got last night in the state of Texas. So that happened. And the Republicans just happened to do even worse, even weaker. Because is it because of the demoralization ops online? It's maybe one factor of many. But I think that in order to stop it, you need to be doing the opposite. If the people that worked overtime to demoralize would do the opposite, I'm not saying lie and stretch how great things are. I'm just saying try to engage people as much as they demoralize people. The whole world would be a better place. But they don't want to do that for one reason or another. And the question is why? Who is funding these people? Who is writing their talking points, which are almost identical? These are all valid questions that need to be asked. But, and it is true that the Republican Party as a whole could do a little bit of a better job as well, trying to make their platform Trump's platform. And if they do that, they would do far better. Because there have been a lot of wins, even very underrated wins, this administration. I don't see them touting the results nearly as much as they should be touting the results. Maybe you could say it's a little too early, but Democrats have been whining for the past year. It's never too early. It's never too early to begin. So I encourage people to actually get out there this November and vote to get out in every special election and vote, in every primary and vote. Do your due diligence, make sure it happens, and make sure that you send a message that this is Donald Trump's party. He delivered a mandate. Imagine if they did better in 26 than they did in 22. Imagine what you could say from that. Trump being present there actually helped the Republicans buck a historical trend, X, Y, and Z. Democrats can't even blame redistricting anymore because they won, or at least drew even, in the redistricting war. So, it's just like everything that we see in the real world is at least by a certain metric, it's improving. You want to continue down that trajectory. Instead, people want to stifle the progress, and that's the problem. So regardless, we'll get to the super chats. I know we've been going for a long time, but we will be getting to the super chats. So without further ado, let's see. We'll start here. We'll start from the beginning. We're 8 out of 15, by the way, to our goal. Send a super chat 5 and above. 7 more, we will hit our goal. So we'll start here after a quick sip of water. BBJG2KN for 10 says, obviously a lousy result. Caveats, though, Texas will never vote when there's ice. Also, I knew many people, many superpowers who didn't know about the race. Also compare runoff versus November jungle numbers. That's also true, and that's the thing. There was a lot more. There were a lot more voters in the primary than the actual general election runoff. So it doesn't make a lot of sense why they would do an election like this. I guess as a special election, which is why. But it's a fluke more so than anything else. Democrats would canvass in the Hispanic heavy areas that are still Democrat. And they drummed up a lot of their turnout from there, possibly because of, Hispanic Democrats that are upset about the ICE raids, and they capitalized on it, or at least the ICE incidents, which is ironic because now it turns out that the police, or the ICE agents who shot Alex Preddy in the state of Minnesota, they're both Mexican-American, which is hilarious. And this is like some deranged white guy that they happened to shoot. Zani3143 says Massey is still crying about the Epstein files. Well, he's a grifter. What do you expect from these people? Like these are grifting clowns. He hasn't done anything since he's been in Congress, a single thing except complain, and votes against the president on many key issues, and then whines, and his people whine and say Trump is a rhino because he doesn't want this guy. It's like he hasn't proved his value. The guy's basically a Cato Institute libertarian at this point. Like, that's not going to be capable of saving the country. And if he was smart, he would at least maintain strong political ties on things that matter and not die on these strange hills if he wanted to advance certain parts of his agenda. But nobody likes him in Congress because he's not capable of doing that. So Giblet6371 says the whole Epstein conspiracy is based on 12 victims who lied on stand multiple times and some conjecture from a liberal Daily Beast reporter. Well, that's all they have. They have lies, things that are fake or things that are almost certainly fake or fabricated, and they run with them. And that's what they use to come to their conclusions. That's what they use. So again, the notion that Trump was involved in any shenanigans, it would have come out while Biden was president. It would have come out probably on the campaign trail in 2016. And it would have actually been proven if it was real, but it's not real. They know it's not real. Giblet6371 says libertarians are for immigration enforcement only if it's not mean. I can't stand them. Yeah, they're like, oh, well, this was a Second Amendment issue that happened in Minneapolis. And it's like, if you go up and run up on police that are in an operation trying to arrest somebody who's a sex offender, by the way, and try to intervene and interfere with their operations after you have assaulted vehicles that were driven by ICE a week prior, even though that was not fully relevant. But it's like, this guy's a provocateur. We know he's not an angel. He's not a conservative. He's not a libertarian. He's a liberal, deranged provocateur who did something very careless and very stupid and put people in, basically, take the government aspect out of it. You'd probably be able to get away with a self-defense in that instance because of how it played out. And you can call it a tragedy. You can call it many things. But one thing that's true is it was completely avoidable by that man's own actions, doing something very stupid and very dangerous to everybody involved. So libertarians, they don't care about the country. They don't care about the national identity. They don't care about anything except for just virtue signaling about how bad big government is or something like that. I don't know. Security TV 4603 for 10 says, I have no pity for Virginia. So many people are complaining. If you don't want to go through hell, don't vote for the devil. I am in the Shenandoah Valley. It's so different than it was 4 years ago. That's going to continue. The left and their policies, they try to make everything just, they try to infect everything. They try to infect every area of every state they have control over. There's no escaping unless you leave. But John Waffle, H2P 70 for 5. And by the way, if you leave and you go to a different state, then you have a Democrat administration. They'll dump 20,000 Haitians in your town. So good luck with that. John Waffle, H2P 70 for 5, says Trump needs to send more ICE to Virginia. It's getting out of control there. Well, he should, and he probably will. I mean, they've have 20 or 220,000 people that they're trying to, or in the process of hiring. Like, that's insane. Like, and these are government jobs that the left doesn't like for some reason. The left loves government jobs if they're just sitting there and getting paid to do nothing or promote DEI or garbage like that. But if it actually has to do with enforcing the laws on the books against the failures of the past administrations, then it becomes a problem. Rowdy Row Down Under for $7.99 Australian says no Virginia redraw, Florida +4 and Utah +1 GOP wins. I don't think we're gonna see that though. I don't know if Utah is gonna be overturned. Maybe, but then you have to worry about Missouri by that logic. Virginia will likely redraw. Florida might go for 4. They might go for 3, and then maybe 2 more competitive seats that could flip in 28, which would arguably be a smart thing to do. So I don't know. Just so long as they draw even between those two, you gotta maximize. But if you dummy mander, then you're in trouble if things go south. So that's kind of a fine line they're gonna have to walk. Giblet for 5 says, I'm worried the Supreme Court will rule against Trump tariffs. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's a bad precedent they'd be setting. Sean Jaramillo for 2 says, I think Trump is doing a great job, MAGA. Well, a lot of people believe that, but then you have the people that decide to come in. It takes just 5% being infected with the mind virus. It's not you. It's not the lion's share of people here. It's just 5%. If you take 5% of Trump's voters and you turn them against him and they all sit out the midterms or whatever, at least compare at 5% of the clip that people voted for Trump, then you're talking about how many voters, like 3 or 4 million that the Democrats get an advantage over. That's the House right there. I mean, that's the entire margin. You divvy up the vote in all the competitive races. He needs some milk for 5, says Evening Red. Has Barris relapsed or something? Been wondering if that would explain his total spazzing out over the last 10 months. I think that the Iran strike, which was wildly successful, by the way, but I think that it broke his brain and some other people's brains regarding the administration. I don't know what it is. I think that it seems like the entire, a lot of the polling sphere at that point in time decided to turn on Trump. I was probably the sole exception because you gotta wait it out, things like that. He didn't start a war. And it's funny because Barris will freak out about special election results, but up until that point, he was saying, no, that there's the overperformances mean nothing. Now apparently they mean something. I can't keep track, but it's like if you're gonna be, if you're gonna oppose Trump for a principled reason, you can't and you're abandoning all your other principles now to oppose the admin. It's a bit strange to say the least. North Star State Politics for 10 says people need to understand economic recovery takes a bit. Trump inherited a mess from Biden. Will take a bit to get it back. Remember, it took Reagan 3 years to fix the Carter mess. Well, it's a thing people need to understand. And I thought that the speech he gave at Christmas or before Christmas was really good messaging. There needs to be more blame put on Biden because people forget things were worse a year ago. But maybe it's because Trump, put tariffs on that now they see it as a vehicle to blame high prices on him, even though prices compared to wages are actually going down a bit. But wages need to go up more. Two things can be true. Giblet for 5 says, for all of Trump's faults, I know he loves the country. That means something to me, and he's comedy gold. Well, the thing is that the vibe does matter. People could say that that's like the cult of personality aspect or whatever, but you need to have one to be successful in politics these days, especially on the right, because there was no energy before Trump came along. He brought the energy, and he has the X factor. That does matter in politics. So Curb Your Enthusiasm for 5 says you should make an entire video on why Massey is bad or something among those lines. Maybe. Also, how you doing from Mixed Guy in Vegas? Doing well, thank you. And maybe we'll make that, or maybe not going to make that video, but maybe when the primary comes along, we'll do a video on the primary, or we'll talk about it. We'll probably have some people that get mad and unsubscribe because he's got a cult of personality out there for some reason, although it's very, very minuscule compared to an actual serious one like Trump has. But it's just inexplicable why you have all the Massey, Dick Ryder types, but it'd be one thing if he was effective or got a lot done or was actually useful when it came down to things like immigration, but he's proven that he's not. X Viper 5 for 5 says, want to point out the Texas special election, the guy won and has to win again because the next session he's not going to be able to do anything. It's not going to make a difference in the world. He's not going to win in November. That's another thing people need to understand. James All Day TV says, do you think the SAVE Act will get passed for the midterms? Well, I would hope so, but I don't have high hopes for it for some reason because it does seem like you don't have enough people signed on to it yet, but hopefully there could be another push for it. We don't need the SAVE Act to win the midterms, but it would probably help, right? We want to eliminate any shenanigans that we possibly can. But it's if you look at California, a lot of people talk about illegal voting. Illegals don't typically vote in states where you have voter ID, for example. And even in states that don't have it, a lot of them still won't go risk it because if they're not going to risk voting in, I don't know, name a state like Virginia, where they probably get caught, or they could get caught. Even if they don't get caught, they could get caught. But in California, when you have all these ballots flying around, some residencies get 5 of them. People who haven't lived there in 20 years, they get a ballot. Yeah, the illegals are going to fill those out any chance that they get, and they're going to send them in, and it does inflate the vote totals, because there's not going to be traceable. So the SAVE Act won't stop all the problems, but it will stop some problems, and that's a good thing. We do need voter ID everywhere. The fact that you don't have voter ID is absurd. It should just be real ID. You prove you're a citizen. Tucson Paleocon for 5 says, is it true the Texas accent is dying out because of California migration? It's hard to tell if there's been a noticeable dip in the Texas accent since 2021 when I first came to the state of Texas, but I think that any place with a lot of transplants, it's not as big as it, the accent's not going to be as big as it was compared to like the people that are native speaking. You don't hear much of an accent, at least in the cities. If you go outside the cities, you probably definitely hear an accent, but it's not very big in DFW anyways. Among some of like the older residents, you'll hear it, the people that have been here for a long time. So maybe it's as the people will be here longer, they'll develop it. I don't know. X Viper 5 says, will the Supreme Court decide on the VRA in time to change the midterms? No, but we might get a decision before the midterms, but it won't impact the midterms. It'll be 2028. Wild and Crazy Bear says, how about a documentary on why Minnesota's the next California? Well, two things. One, they're very time consuming. Number two, I think that it's more of like a Oregon than a California. I think Oregon is a much better comparison. Like Illinois maybe, but I think Oregon, given like the culture, very far left in the cities in that area, in that region, and then very red rural areas that don't have enough pull. But the state's not going to be as blue as Oregon or Washington State. John Waffle, H2P, says the Pennsylvania GOP will welcome people from Virginia and New York. Absolutely. Pennsylvania, that's a big one. James All Day TV for 2 says, do you think SCOTUS will overturn Prop 50? I don't believe they will. I think it's unlikely. So, but maybe it's worth a Hail Mary. I don't know. So regardless, we hit our goal. We can look in regular chat for the rest of the stream. We'll go for another 10 to 15 minutes. And if you guys still want to send in super chats, feel free. I'm not going to stop you, but we will be looking at regular chat. And like the stream down below, let's get to 300 likes. We are almost there. We have more than enough manpower to do it. Let's do it. And yeah, for the someone put in chat about the filibuster, that needs to go. Enough talk about the left is going to use it against us, because they will anyways. Like we understand that, and I'll end the poll as well. We had 7% saying F. It's not a lot of people, but it's too many. I don't know. You have sometimes people from the left come in, and we know why they're going to say F. That's understandable. Why the left would hate Trump's term, but that usually means to me that it'd be at least a B, right? Probably an A. People need to turn their displeasure on Congress, not Trump. Well, the thing is that Congress has to act more. I agree. But the people that say, I'm not voting in the midterms, I'm not voting for these Congress people, they don't understand that it's not about the Congress so much as it is about like the proxy war. That's what they don't get. How do I think Supreme Court will rule on the tariffs? Maybe they'll find like a compromise ruling. I'm not sure. We'll see. Like, are they going to strike every tariff down? Or are they going to say tariffs that are this broad need to be ran through Congress? So it's an important question. They've brought in revenue. Prices have not skyrocketed. I'm still waiting for the tariff inflation. I don't see it anywhere. Now, prices are much higher than they were 5 years ago, but is that Trump's fault? No. But our prices are not much higher than they were when Trump took office. If anything, they're roughly about the same. So all this talk about 5% inflation, it's all BS. It's not real. We've heard it how many times. It doesn't mean that prices aren't high. It doesn't mean people don't have as much disposable income as they used to have. But all this talk about tariffs are going to destroy the economy, destroy the markets, it's just not real. The trade laws of economics, as we know it, have been rewritten to a certain degree by this administration. So, is it possible to push the next government funding vote to after the midterms? It's not, because based on how they funded the government. Now, Democrats, the one good thing that could come out of this is Republicans will need to grow a spine and nuke the filibuster, because first of all, the Democrats are going to do it the second they have the opportunity. Let's get that out of the way. And number two, it's so clear that In the midterms, if you're going to go through shutdown after shutdown, yeah, you're going to lose. I'm not going to say that you should lose. I'm not going to say I won't vote, but there will be enough people out there that vote against you if you don't have the balls to nuke the filibuster. It's bad strategy. Yes, I'll tell people to vote, but at the same time, it's evident that we need serious, like, actual people running the show, and we need to apply pressure and make sure that we can get as many people as possible on board with it, at least for bills that fund the government. J.R. Williams 4029 for 5 says, what will Republicans run on in 28 since mass deportations are a failure? And so, well, it's not true. So you're repeating the same talking points that we've gone through the first half of this stream. I don't understand how people say this, because why? Because you can't deport 20 million people in one day or 1 year? Let's talk about the ICE funding. The funding didn't go into effect until October. Then you have to train all these people. Now they're just starting to get out there, and then there's all this public pressure on them. And you still have millions of people that have left the country since the guy's taken office. So I don't believe that there's been a failure on the front of deportations. You have you have the highest level of deportations, real deportations, not turn people away at the border deportations like Obama had. You have the highest level in decades on that front. And that was his first year under the Biden ICE budget. And you have millions of people that have just walked out or gone home. So I don't know how you look at that in 1 year and say it's a failure, that the population of illegal migration has gone down from probably around 18 mil to somewhere like 16. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, but there's none coming in and there's a lot going out. And as for law and order, murder rate dropped the biggest drop in decades in major cities because Trump sent in the National Guard. I think it's one of the biggest successes the administration has had, and it's one I'd like to see him tout even more. So, again, I don't see it as a failure. And by the way, why are people writing off the admin when you've only had 1 year of the administration? And then people want to hand Congress to the Democrats so they can stifle the admin and hold it back for the remainder. Like, I don't understand why people do this to themselves. It's beyond me. So we are making progress. I think there's been tremendous progress on the immigration front, legal and illegal and legal, by the way. So, and new news about the building of the wall. Yeah, well, the wall's funded, but it needs to be built. I think they're scaling projects right now for like 40 miles. I looked this up a few days ago, actually, because I was curious about it myself. But think about that. First Trump admin, they couldn't fund the wall even. They wouldn't even be able to get a deal done to fund a $20 billion border wall. This time, it's already funded. All the funds are earmarked for it. They just need to use it and take it from there. So, but as for the government shutdown, yeah, they got to find a deal. The fact that the Republicans have a trifecta, they still can't do it, is absurd. Because Republicans wouldn't shut down the government. And I understand why in 2024 you might not have wanted to do it because it's a risky gamble. You know, you might get, you know, it could impact things negatively for the Dems. It could impact things negatively for the Republicans. But now we understand that if Republicans are in power and they have a trifecta, there should be zero excuse for a government shutdown. It should not be happening. It should not be happening. Vote MAGA in the primary, vote Republican in general. And I agree with that. I mean, it's if anybody is complaining about the general election before the primaries begin, that person is not your friend, clearly, based on that alone. So, the wall should be Trump's crowning achievement. Now it's been memory hole. Do you find that? Well, I think the reason why that nobody's talking about it is because the border has effectively been not physically with a wall, but the border's effectively been secured because nobody's crossing it. So that has lowered it on the totem pole for a lot of people. Should people talk about it more? Yeah, possibly. I mean, that would be something that if it was raised more, you might see more progress happening. The problem is the people that complain nonstop are the people that the administration doesn't want to listen to. And a lot of their complaints are BS and just happen to blackpill the patriots that are working inside the administration. So it's not like they're gaining all the progress that's being done is not because of them. It's in spite of them. So Gen Z's demoralized, half Trump. Well, what, like, I don't understand. People are acting like the whole country's on fire, like it's 2020, asking Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. You have some protests that get out of hand. I mean, there were riots in LA that Trump did send the guard into, and Newsom threw a temper tantrum about it. Not like we care what he has to say, but it's not quite. You know, it's just not quite what they make it out to be. Wild and Crazy Bear says, I think Cornyn will win because of Rhino Boomers. We'll see. There won't be a lot of crossover support because Democrats have to vote in their primary for a contested primary. So, let's see. Boomers hate Cornyn too. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there's the rhino types, the ideological rhinos are not a very big part of the party. The people that'll vote for Cornyn are just low information voters, more so than like ideological rhinos. Bad Bunny condemning ICE. This is who hosts the Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't know how they have a Super Bowl halftime show by a guy that doesn't have a single song in English. It's a bit strange because this is the American Super Bowl. If he's like one of like three people and it's like a sideshow where he's like mixed into the thing, it's one thing. But the guy's also a woke moron, which is, I think, the bigger problem with the whole thing. He says, I'm not performing in the U.S. until ICE raids stop. Then he lives in Puerto Rico, which is a part of the U.S. He's a moron. Let's see. Good generations, Silent X and Z. Bad generations, Boomers, Y, and Alpha. It depends. Y, I think, is overhated. But, like, it is true. Millennials at one point were very annoying and very liberal, and maybe that's changed a bit as time has gone on. There's, very different types of millennials. A millennial that was born in 1986 is going to be different than the millennial born in 1994. So, have I seen the California governor polls? Well, I made a video on it. Of course, a lot of the people that didn't comment after watching the video, or they wouldn't have made a lot of the comments that they made. But yeah, I mean, there's like a 10% chance they elect a Republican governor because of how their primary is set up. And that's surprisingly high percentage for California. So, all right. A last call for super chats, last call for chats in general. We're going to wrap this up in a minute or two because it's a little bit late, and I think we've gotten everything out that we needed to get out tonight. I just wanted to talk this week about the things that I saw in the sphere, what's going on with it. I also put an article out on my website for paying members about a couple weeks ago about the article about the successes debunking the doomer myths about the Trump administration. Mr. Jimmy for 5 says people need to realize if Dems win power, they'll open the borders, pack the courts, and use lawfare. Exactly. And even the midterms now, I mean, it's a buffer against the future because those Senate seats will be there for 6 years. Like, if you let Roy Cooper be senator, the Senate is usually supposed to be the buffer for any administration. We got to protect the Senate because we have a chance to really gain. And if we drop the ball yet again in the Senate, it's not going to be good. So people need to get out and vote. They need to vote in Ohio, vote in Alaska, vote in Texas, states that probably go red, but Democrats are going to still spend a bunch of money, and then they want to bank on Republicans sleeping at the wheel, so we need to make sure we don't sleep at the wheel. So, yep, vote for Dan Sullivan, exactly. And the thing is that it's just a very childish thing people do when they say they don't want to show up because they're not getting their way, even though they're getting more of their way than they feasibly could. I just view it as like a beta thing. Like, I'm just going to sit it out and let the other side take over when they won't even show up to vote in a primary. Or they'll just lie and find reasons to have that worldview. The whole thing is a mess, guys. The whole thing is a mess. But I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. Like the stream before you go. Subscribe. Hit the bell. I'll see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.